Hello, gardening class. This is Mrs. Lewis, and today we are going to identify 3 very common trees that live in our area. So the first tree that we are going to identify is called the Crape Myrtle. We have 5 crepe myrtles that grow outside building 3. So let's count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we have 6. There's a tiny little one at the very end there I forgot about. Right there. 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first way you can identify a crepe myrtle is by its branching trunks. It's very rare that you'll see a crepe myrtle with a single trunk. They have to be trimmed that way for it to happen. So most crepe myrtles that have been left alone, you can see they have these 3 branching trunks. So let's go see this crepe myrtle over here, how many trunks it has. It has 1 branching trunk and then a second one right here, okay? And that's very common of crepe myrtles. The second way you can identify a crepe myrtle is by its smooth bark. It's smooth, almost like pinkish bark. You know, it has a very nice color. Some crepe myrtles can even have a darker bark. This one has a really light one. Another way right now, because it's springtime, a lot of the crepe myrtles are blooming, these bright green leaves. So they lose leaves in the wintertime and then they grow them back in the springtime. Crepe myrtles have these tiny little round seeds that fall. In the summer and fall time, they will bloom these beautiful pink and purple and even sometimes red clusters of flowers. They almost look like grape clusters. And you will see them all along streets, everywhere you drive. So it's one tree, it's the crepe myrtle. Let's go inside crepe myrtle. Okay, the second tree is a very common tree, is an oak tree. So let's see, this is an oak tree that is in our playground. Oak trees have a single trunk and then they tend to branch out a lot from that single trunk. Right now, oak trees are producing new leaves on the outside of their crown, which is their head of leaves. So you can see the bright green growth of the new leaves, and they are also producing a lot of pollen. So on the ground here, you can see all this pollen. This is all pollen. These are all strands of little pollen that they produce. So in the springtime, right after winter, they produce lots of pollen. The type of oak tree that we have in this area is called a live oak. I'm gonna say live oak. They have these long shaped, smooth leaves. This is a brown one, but they're usually green. They don't lose all their leaves in the winter, so they're evergreen. These ones are evergreen, meaning they keep their leaves in the winter, and then they do shed old leaves every year, but they never lose all of them. So these are all the old leaves, but they still have leaves on them from last year. Okay, so they have new growth. Another way you can identify oak trees is if they're producing acorns, and they produce acorns in the fall. Also, they have a rough bark. You can touch that rough bark. Yes, rough bark. So a lot of different ways you can identify. The third tree we have on our playground is called a Chinese tallow. So this is a Chinese tallow. Let's all say Chinese tallow together. Chinese tallow. A Chinese tallow, they lose their leaves like the crepe myrtle. They lose their leaves in the fall, or in the fall and in the winter. They also have a rough bark like an oak tree, and they have these pretty green leaves that are almost diamond shaped. And in the fall, they turn a very bright red and orange and yellow when they fall to the ground. So this is springtime in Houston, so they're all green and beautiful. So that's a Chinese tallow. Those are 3 very common trees that you will see around the Houston area and will see in your walks. Please look for them next time you're on your walk. Happy gardening!